Wrath had predetermined sockets with the correct colors so you could target certain things. You could buy shit with badges if you got unlucky. But they hated Wrath. You guys know this, right? They hated Wrath of the Lich King. They thought it was absolute dog shit. They thought the loot system... Hold on. Yeah, it's basically up there. I can't find it. There's a YouTube video of it. I had it in one of my videos. It's really interesting because they go on about how much... there's a big talk about how much they disliked. Anybody know the link of the video? It might be gone. There was a YouTube video of a conference where the loot dev was explaining it. And how much they disliked the way it was in Wrath. It was a long time. It's an old video. Yeah, they hated the badge system. They thought it was shit. I think the title was about Diablo. Travis Day. Oh yeah, it might be this one. Oh yeah, it was about Diablo, wasn't it? Yeah. It was about Diablo.
Balanced, deterministic, and random, aka that time we broke the WoW reward structure. So I'm going to tell the story of Badges of Justice. This is a story from many years ago that some of you may or may not be familiar with. So when we were working on the development of Burning Crusade, before we had actually shipped it and we knew anything about what the game was going to be, we were trying to sort out what were we going to do to reward this new idea of heroic dungeons. For those of you who aren't familiar with WoW, back in these days, the dungeon size for our players was 5-person dungeons. You could go into a dungeon, you could get 4 of your buddies, kill a bunch of bosses, get some items. The only other piece of content that you had access to was 40-man raids. And in 40-man raids, it was a very similar experience, except you would get 40 people together, you would go kill a boss, and the 40 people would get 2 items and have to figure out how they were going to divvy that up. So, when we were going, okay, what does it mean to have a heroic dungeon? We've got 5-man content over here, you get a couple items. We've got 40-man content over here, there's not a lot of in between. And I remember we were talking going, well, you know, if 40 people get 2 epics, then maybe in a 5-man dungeon you get a piece of an epic. That is how the Badge of Justice was born. It was not the best.
Still low.
But I'll get to why. So players, every time they would kill a heroic dungeon boss, would earn a couple of Badges of Justice. They could take the Badges of Justice to a vendor, and the vendor would have a limited assortment of items that they could purchase. So we had introduced the system, Burning Crusade launched. Generally, it was working out okay. And during the development of Burning Crusade,
Badge of Justice was fine with me.
Our first 10-man raid called Karazhan. Karazhan was meant to sort of be a stepping stone between our 5-man dungeon content and our
best
more
raid ever.
Endgame raids.
Yeah, boy.
We had brought down the raid size from 40 to 25 during the Burning Crusade, so 10 was kind of an in-between. We had 5-man dungeons, 5-man heroics, 10-man raids with Karazhan, and then 25-man raids. Karazhan itself at the time was meant to sort of be this intermediary. It was in our minds, not real raiding because it was only 10 people, so we didn't get loot that was as good as what the 25-man raiders were earning.
Don't say it out
It was
loud.
sort of thought that players would progress from normal dungeons into heroics, into Karazhan, and hopefully check out, the real raids.
I agree with him.
So we started getting feedback, both internally and externally, from our players saying, hey, this is fun, we're having a good time, the loot's pretty good for us, but man, I could really use some of that Badge of Justice loot. Why aren't you dropping badges in the 10-man raid? And we talked about it and we thought, well, that's not unreasonable. The items that they're wearing right now are worse than the badge gear. They're also substantially worse than the drops from the raid zone, but since we only dropped, I think, 2 items at this point for 10 people, which we thought was a huge leap forward coming from a land where 40 people got 2 items. We thought, okay, you know what, we can go ahead and add badges here. These are really the target audience for these items. Let's just go ahead and add them to Karazhan. So, after we added our 10-man badges to Karazhan, we then had people internally and externally start giving us feedback. Hey, we're doing the 25-man raid, Serpentine Cavern. Why are the 10-man raiders getting things that we don't get access to? This is way harder than what they're doing. And we thought, well, that's true. The gear is not really built for you, but okay, why not? Maybe you've got some pieces that need replacing. Let's go ahead and add the Badges of Justice to the 25-man raids. So this caused a new problem where people were suddenly getting badges that didn't really have much use, and we thought, well, if we're going to drop them, they need to be relevant to these people.
No, not really. It's to just fill in slots that you didn't get. That was all it was for. You were getting 25-man raid. Right, that's where I go off the tracks there. I understand what they're thinking. It's like, well, we're giving people all this currency and they have nothing to spend it on. And my argument always was, allow us to buy flasks and things like that with it, which eventually they did do. Like, it's fine. Badge gear is just to fill in those slots so you don't get bollocksed by RNG all the time. And you can be slightly worse than what the drop would be. But endgame stuff is fine. Like, it would have been totally fine if we could have just turned that into cauldrons. We could have turned that into, especially in the Burning Crusade, where making flasks was a real pain in the ass. Even if you could have bought just the lotuses. I can't remember what the lotuses were called in the Burning Crusade, but just have a use for them. Make them really expensive, so if you're a guild that doesn't use badges, like, at all, then you can buy all this stuff. Bell lotus, right? Just shit like that. That would have been fine, because potions and shit were, like, costing us millions of gold. That's where it goes off the rails for me. Badges are just there to alleviate the problem of, like I had in the Black Temple, I didn't get my I got my Bulwark of Azeroth before I got my Myrmidon's Treads. They just never dropped. Like, I just didn't have any boots for ages. And so badges were there to alleviate that and bring it up. I'm not saying they should be, like, base gear, but they don't need to be as good as the raid.
So we had this brilliant idea where, okay, we'll just start adding a couple new items every time we add a new piece of content tier to the vendor. And then the people who are getting them out of the raid will have something that they actually want. Unfortunately, and I don't know why we didn't see this coming, players started farming badges to buy the items ahead of time. They would see the PTR, go, oh man, look at these cool items that they're going to put on the vendor soon. Everyone go farm these crappy old contents and get a lot of badges together. So people started farming badges. For the hardcore players, they were sort of forced into this behavior where they were accruing a currency that they didn't normally care about from content that was...
Is there anything wrong in your eyes with the simple solution of there's a hard cap where you can buy an item and essentially you can get one item at the start of a patch? Like, if you're accruing badges, that's enough to buy an item, like tomestones, yeah, and that you can... Then you can buy one item at one less than raid quality item at the start of a new patch with the amount of stuff you have. Is that really a problem? I don't think that's a problem. Like, if you can afford to buy something to get you started on a brand new patch day, like, is that a problem? I don't see that as a problem. Like, you get yourself a brand new chest on the new patch day. If you've saved your stuff, you can just you've worked for it. It's fine, and then you can get whatever. Like, I don't see the problem in it. I don't see why they saw it as a problem. It's like, oh god, they're getting gear too quickly or whatever. Like, I never saw it as a problem. I didn't get it.
way trivial to them. And for the more casual or average user, they were getting access to items that were meant for the really hardcore raider that were way beyond anything they were ever going to find any other way.
So
we wanted to fix that.
So
and
what? Johnny's got a good pair of legs.
Like, okay, we need to stop the pre-farming. We need to make sure that the rewards are commensurate with the.
Yeah, so what? But I know, I said this to Ian, and I almost got angry, but I did contain it a little bit. But it was one of the things, when I did my first interview with Ian, it was one of the things that a lot of people thought that I was being rude for. But at some point, when Ian was talking, because I obviously have a very different perspective than these guys, is they said so. Ian said something similar to this, and I just went, so what? What does it matter? Like, that was my... What does it matter if fucking Billy has a nice pair of legs? It's not as good as what I get from the big raid, the hard raid, but what the fuck does it matter if little Billy has a fucking nice pair of legs? And if he wants to go and farm some doggo content that drops slightly less badges all day, every day, to get himself a couple of fucking boots or whatever, and it's still shitter than what I have, so what? That's his content. That's his gameplay loop. He's having fun. He's getting decent gear that's like up to raid. He's capable of joining a guild. Like, I don't get it. He's not useless in dungeons. I don't see the problem.
Content people are doing to some degree. So let's go ahead and make a different badge type for all the different content levels. So,
well, I'm reminded of Vanilla, and I know I'm Boomertown. I get it. But in Boomertown 2006, right? Let me take you to Boomertown 2006. Tier 0.5 was dog shit. And they introduced it into the game late in Classic WoW. They introduced it reasonably late in. But the entire player base was going mad for it. Like, farming the shit out of it. Because they took, like, the Magister set. And then you could get a better set, like the Shadowcraft set, and you can get a slightly better set. And it was crap, but people farmed the shit out of it at the time because it gave them a gameplay loop. It wasn't as good as what the Raiders were going for, but it gave them a focus, it gave them things to go for. It was better than what they could normally access. It was fine. Like, I didn't get it. I looked at it because I had, like, fucking, I don't know, Blackwing Lair or AQ gear or whatever whenever it came out. But I looked at it and was like, well, that's well shit. But that's when you realize... Like, one of the most humbling experiences I ever had that made me feel like an egomaniac was going to buy the Burning Crusade when the Burning Crusade launched. I queued up with Andy at, I think we went to Tesco or Asda. We went to a supermarket because they were the only ones that were still open, and that meant you could buy it at midnight. And we turned up and there was a ginormous queue down the road for people to buy the Burning Crusade. And I was surrounded by people who were bragging about the fact that they had cleared part of Molten Core. This is the end of Vanilla, obviously. The Burning Crusade is coming. And they were, like, genuinely impressing people that they had, like, 3 pieces of Prophecy or 2 pieces of Might. And I was like, I am fucking surrounded by shitters. Like, everywhere I look, I am surrounded by shitters. And I thought that it was relatively normal that people would be up to Blackwing Lair at least. I mean, I was doing Nax or whatever, but like, whatever. And then, when the Warcraft movie launched, and it happened again, when the Warcraft movie launched, these bigwigs from LA, the production company, paid me to go down to London to this gamer bar, this like actual pub that was converted as a gamer bar, to present the Warcraft movie UK opening. And they brought all the props and stuff, right? You know, in the movie, they had all the big armor, the Stormwind Guard set, all the weapons and all that shit. They brought all that stuff down. They gave us loads of copies of the movies to give away and all this kind of stuff. And while I was there, I was chilling downstairs before I had to do my bit in front of this crowd. And 2 people came in and booted up World of Warcraft. And I was like, no way. Because they were obviously billing it as a World of Warcraft movie night. Like, the public was allowed in at a certain point. So some members of the public came in and started playing World of Warcraft. And you know what they did? They were paying for internet cafe time. They logged in. They went to Icecrown. And they started transmog farming. And when I think of a clicker in a video game, right? When I think of a clicker... Let me go here. when I'm like doing a guide for WoW or for whatever game, and I talk about clickers, this is the kind of thing that I'm talking about, right? And these videos exist frigging everywhere all over my YouTube channel. Can I get in here? Whoop. So it'd be like, okay, so you gotta click this, and you don't want to do this, guys, because it like slows you down, it's less efficient, you want to be able to move and stuff, right? But generally speaking, the rotation is relatively close to what it should be. What I witnessed that day was this person log into ICC, run right up to the mobs, and so they'd be killing like 30 mobs, and then be like, and it was such a weird experience to watch that actually happen, because they wiped transmog farming ICC for no other reason than they just didn't know what buttons to press. They wiped these two of them, and it was like, it's infuriating to watch. It is, but then I have that experience. It's like this is probably more close to the average player than I realize. For the most part, it's like, this is what they're doing with their time, and they're having a blast. I'm not like shitting on these people. I want to be clear on that. I'm not shitting on these people. They're having a good time. These two, it was a boy and a girl. They might have been girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever. It didn't matter. But they were having a really good time. They were chilling. They were chatting. They were having fun. They were getting transmog. They were just fucking. They were fine. They were totally fine. It was no problem at all. But that's probably closer to what the average player is doing.
We'll have the low-level badge, the medium-level badge, the high-level badge. And we'll just have loot that makes sense. So if you're doing content A, you get badge A, that'll get item A, and B gives you badge B, we'll buy item B, and so on. While assembling this presentation, I found this picture, and I showed it to Tom and Chilton.
Who made this? I actually showed it to someone. Solved it. Nailed it. Nailed it.
And some of the other guys who used to work on this with us. And my thought was, what the hell were we thinking? So this is what badge system looked like during Wrath of the Lich King. There were ultimately 5 different types of badges with 5 different vendors associated with them. And if you could find a badge, you'd have to go to a city and look for, like, all right, which of these vendors is the right vendor?
Oh, that's true. The armor vendors in Dalaran kept having to add more vendors. Eventually, I was a warrior. They had to start putting them upstairs because they ran out of room to put the NPCs in to sell all the shit. Does that happen to anybody else? They ran out of vendor space, so they had to start putting shit upstairs. And there was all these different item levels as well. Because I think the way they did it, I could be wrong on this. No, I think if now I think about it, I think they did something like you could get the higher item level stuff, but you needed more badges. So yeah, because this was when I joined Method for the first time, and I'd farmed all my badges, and I got really bitched at by some guy who was trying to take my raid spot for not having bought my, I think it was LFR quality. It would have been normal quality, right? LFR wasn't in the game yet. I hadn't bought my normal quality robe from the vendor yet because I was saving my badges. And I think you could get, I don't know whether you could get higher item level or whether shoulders or something like that were more expensive, something like that. So I was like saving for the shoulders because they were better. And he went ape shit at me because he'd bought legs or something, and he thought I was trying to scam the system. And I just said to him, well, that's really dumb. Why wouldn't you get the best thing first? He's like, because we need it for progress. I'm like, that doesn't work that way, dude. It wasn't complicated. No, it wasn't complicated. It just got over the top.
Badges,
right?
In case you missed a set piece you really had to have. It was a train wreck. The whole thing was terrible. So we ended up with way more than we wanted, and ultimately, I don't know. I'm sorry. If you played through this, I'm sorry. It's my fault. I apologize. The whole thing was just a total.
Didn't they roll them forward? I'm trying to remember. It was a long time ago. But well, like when, let's say the third one came out, did they not just bundle these together? And so they would only ever be 2? I mean, why would you keep like the old versions? Did they keep them as 5 separate ones instead of just like rolling them forward? No, it wasn't converted to gold back then. You just had all the badges. Yeah. That only happened in Kata? Yeah, I think so. I think they kept it as 5 separate ones.
Can't say. So, while we were working on all that, we kept getting feedback like, hey, these systems are better. You know, we fixed a lot of problems. Granted, this is 10 years ago us, and we were naive. But I remember Tom.
It would be cool if I could buy my sets from the vendor instead of waiting for RNG.
Coming to me and saying, hey.
Thoughts on that? Do you agree with that or not for tier sets? I don't mind drops. You get fucked sometimes, but I actually don't mind the drops. I really don't. I really don't. It doesn't bother me. I mean, both is what they're doing now, right? That's what they're doing now for the next patch. But I don't particularly mind the drops. I always liked getting my drop. If you in a world where you can trade, that should be the caveat on that. In a world where you can trade freely and openly, but I mean, I guess I have this like pillar to sit on, is that I was always in a good group of people who distributed loot properly. So it wasn't an issue. It wasn't an issue for me. Like, drops was fine. I was happy to see the drop. I enjoyed that excitement of seeing that, you know, the tier shoulders drops and things like that. I thought it was good. I also didn't expect to have full tier like in 2 weeks or something like that. About drops and 8 clears lets you buy the chess piece. Well, that's what they're going for now, right? You'll be able to convert a piece. That's what they're doing in the next one, so you avoid the RNG shit. But I mean, I didn't particularly mind it personally. I thought it was alright, because as long as you can get, like, I liked the Sunwell style and probably the earlier style, is that yes, there was more tier pieces, so you're getting your 4 set bonus is not difficult. Because they started reducing the tier set pieces. But you getting your 4 piece wasn't a big deal. But you might be craving the shoulders. They're idyllic, right? But they have another pair of shoulders in the raid that's also really, 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 really good. And just, you know, almost as good as the other one. And so you generally weren't fucked. Because if someone did get their tier shoulders, that's fine. They're your friend. But then you could get the other shoulders as well. So you did have 2 or 3 chances per week of getting the slot. And you had plenty of chances of getting the bonus. That's how I kind of thought about it. That was good. I never found loot an issue. No, at any point I never found loot an issue. It just seemingly was an issue for. It seems an issue for them more than me. But there you go. It seemed like more of an issue for those guys.
Hey, I still haven't got my set piece. You know, it would be really cool if I could just buy that because I've been trying to get it for 2 months. Why don't we just put the sets on the vendors too?
It takes all the fun out of it. That's my take on that. It just takes all the fun out when it's just on a vendor. Of tier sets. Tier sets are supposed to be cool.
Okay, we could put the sets on the vendors too. Why not? We've got 5 different tiers of badges. You know, most players are going to be insulated from this. Let's just go ahead and do that. Why not? Sure, you're the boss. And then this. So at that point, we sort of had created initially this system that was meant as an introductory for the more average user into sort of a transition of the harder levels of content. The items were meant to be commensurate with it. And then we sort of looked around and realized, okay, we've instead replaced sort of the heart of what it is to kill a boss and the excitement of link the loot with something that sort of felt like a paycheck. We've instead
RNG isn't fun when you get fucked by it. But purely deterministic is not fun either. Like, chasing an item that's the fun. That's the gameplay loop, right? You're chasing an item. You're chasing that trinket. You're chasing that thing. RNG isn't fun when you get absolutely fucked by it, which can happen. Absolutely. But at the same time, purely just buying your shit off a vendor. I kind of agree with Blizz on this. Having everything just purchasable is like certainly the best stuff. Having the best stuff just buyable from a vendor is not fun for me either. I don't find that particularly fun. I mean, it's certainly in an MMO or an RPG. I don't find that fun at all. I don't like that. Yeah, that doesn't do for me. You still need to do the content though. Yeah, but in a grindy uninteresting way. It's like the Legion Legendary system, where it just came down to. I mean, remember, some of you won't remember the launch, but during the launch, it was like Court of Stars had an unreasonably larger drop rate on legendaries than every other dungeon for some reason. And therefore, people just farmed the shit out of it for like 24 hours. Or more of Souls to get the points. You just ended up turning it into that. I mean, personally, I'm kind of okay with RNG because you're still overcoming the challenge. And you're right, like after weeks and weeks, I think that becomes a problem. But if you're offsetting that with slightly lower quality badge gear, I'm okay with that too. You've got that bad luck protection in there. It's not the ideal item you want, but it's very close, and you're still getting your other one. Like, I'm okay with that.
Replaced the anticipation of seeing what items dropped and figuring out who gets them with the system of killing a boss, seeing +5 badges, and going, sweet, in 372 badges, I'll have my set, I'll be done. So let me look at my calendar. Awesome, 3 months from now, I'll have everything I want. Once we replaced that sense...
That's a disgusting irony in that statement, because I don't know when they changed this, but then they made Dragon Wrath, which was... which was purely deterministic legendary stuff. They literally went on the calendars to get the legendary item. Like, they literally were like, okay, so now we'll make legendaries completely deterministic. And you have to do this, and we'll get it done. And this is when you get yours on here.
Of anticipation, which, with something that felt like a foregone conclusion, the players stopped being excited about killing the content or doing the raids they'd been doing, and instead felt like we were creating this really grindy system and sort of keeping everything back from them. So in an attempt to address that, World of Warcraft introduced some systems that were meant to sort of re-inject the sense of anticipation and the randomized reward back.
This I did not mind. This I did not mind. This I hated. This I hated. This I did not mind. I did not mind the bonus roll system. I was okay with that. Warforging, no. Absolutely not. I thought bonus roll was cool. I liked thinking about where I wanted to use it that week. I kind of liked that system. I'm not sure it was necessary to be added, but I kind of liked bonus rolling. It was just that extra chance was cool. If you got fucked more often than not, but whatever. But like picking which boss you wanted to use it on. I think the best benefit I ever got out of this is that occasionally you'd get a really good roll. Like I think I got one of my best trinkets from this in Argus raid, whatever the fuck that was called. Which it then drops, which meant more people got that item. So even if they got like as a team, I really liked this. I'm sure every raider has had that point with bonus rolls where you rolled the item you wanted when one dropped on the boss, and 2 of you got the item, and that was sick. That was really cool. Instead of this really precious item being like fought and coveted over, occasionally somebody would roll it, and you managed to get it. Warforging though, I hated it. I got the reasoning for it, but I mean, Warforging was the original, right? So that was only 5 item levels, I think. It's when it got really wacky. It went out of line.
Into the game, while preserving some of the elements of the deterministic reward structure. They introduced a token, I forget what it's called these days, they've got a bunch of different types, but there's a token where you can earn a couple each week, and whenever you kill a boss, a little box pops up and says, do you want to spend a token? And you can say yes or no.
You know what this really helped with as well, and I don't know whether this was only in Mists of Pandaria, is you could earn loads of these, and you could just gear up a new character in like a week, because they gave a massive bonus to bonus rolling. So you could go into a raid, and you were almost guaranteed an item every time you bonus rolled on the previous tier content. So you could go in and get loads of it. Was it Mists of Pandaria? I just remember going on my rogue when I was gearing that up, and I just went and did that. There was an instance thing where you could run around and collect chests. You could run around and collect chests. But if you stayed in the first room, you just got a shitload of bonus roll coins. And it was on the Isle of Thunder, I think it was. And you just could go into a raid and you could just roll over and over again and get your character geared up. Not to like the best standard, but really good. Like really, really quickly. It was nice that. I liked that. Because it almost felt like I was winning the lottery all the time. It was kind of cool.
and you can spend your tokens to basically get bonus rolls on the boss's loot table. So players have more control over trying to find specific items than they used to, but it's not a list of items where they save up 500 currency and go buy something. In addition to this, they also introduced the concept of something called Warforged items. For World of Warcraft purposes, that means that anytime you kill a boss
they removed it.
and they drop an item, there's a chance the item can roll Warforged. And that just means there's a chance that it'll be either higher level, or it'll have bonus attributes, or it'll in some way, shape, or form be stronger. In the newest expansion, they introduced the idea of Titan Forged, which means your Warforged item can Warforged, etc., up a really high tree. And sometimes you just get totally surprised with, oh my god, this item is incredible. I never expected to find something like this.
I think I would almost be fine with Titan Forging if it stopped at Mythic level. Now that might be purely selfish, because that would be the gear I was getting, but I would probably not be as arsed about it if it stopped at the Mythic level. And that's the highest. So if you're grinding the hardest content in the game, and you're farming that shit, that's the top. That's where it is. I mean, I'd probably be less pissed off about that system other than that, if it was something like that. Then you don't feel like your effort is wasted. Yeah, I mean, when I was playing Melee, because you had that awful fucking moment. I mean, I prefer none of it. I don't get me wrong, I prefer none of it, but I would be less annoyed with it if it did stop at like the Mythic level. Like that's the top, and if you're grinding that, that's your reward for doing the hardest content is that you're getting the top level gear. Someone in Heroic getting it, again, I just don't care. I don't care if someone in Heroic gets Mythic quality gear. That'd be like being angry at the Vault or something like that. I just don't care. But there's that awful moment, and I'm sure lots of us have probably had it over the years, where, like, certainly as a melee, like a dagger would drop. And it's not Warforged or Titan Forged or anything, and you get it. And then you're literally counted out of ever getting that item until everybody else gets it. And certainly if you're, like, somebody who has plenty of those classes. And then it's like Titan Forged and shit afterwards. And because you got the first one, and... you got fucked for the rest of time until everybody else had it, and then you're like, and then you need to circle back round the loop again to try and get it again, and it has a dramatic effect on your performance. Like shit like that just sucked. It really sucked. And then, oh god, like that used to piss me off so much when that happened. Is like, oh, okay, especially when there was the ludicrous trinkets. Like the really ridiculous trinkets that were like 20 to 40% of your damage, and like you got the first one, you're like, oh, this is really cool. This is like 15% damage upgrade, and then fucking Tommy Cloggington gets the next one, and he's just got like a 40% damage upgrade, and you're like, well, we have the same item, we did the same shit. Like, fuck off, man. You're a shitter clog, and you deserve to die.
So WoW started moving their game back from the deterministic structure that we had accidentally introduced over the years, and tried to reinsert sort of a randomized reward system. Around this time is when Diablo 3 launched, and they were tackling some of their own problems that were very similar to these. In Diablo 3, if you have, who's played Diablo 3? Okay, this is great. This is so much easier for me. I'm still going to explain things, but at least you all know what I'm talking about. So in Diablo 3, items were fully randomized, meaning you could find any item on any character with any stats.
I mean, these two are comparable.
What this often felt like was this. So you could find an item on your barbarian that was meant for a demon hunter, like a quiver.
What does it say? Oh my god, it's a Doom Crusher 5000 XL Deluxe. What a beauty. Look at these stats. This is by far the best weapon of the entire friggin'... Oh, wait. No socket. It's actually dog shit. Better to stick to my old weapons then. It's actually dog. No socket. This is actually shit. Oh, actually shit. I don't know, man. Purely deterministic, I don't like either. I think some protection in slots is fine. I think that's totally fine, but I like the RNG. Generally, it works out in a tradable world. In a tradable world. Needs to be clear on that. In a fully tradable world, you tend to look after each other and do it well. That PoE lol. I never knew what was a good item in PoE, and I still don't know to this day. I think I have a good few hundred hours in that game now, and I still don't know if gear's any good. No idea. No fucking clue. No idea.
And had stats that were for a wizard. So items that just were usable or useful to no one could just drop in Diablo 3. What this meant was, because it was so random whether or not you could find an upgrade, the odds of any individual item actually being better than what you had were remarkably slim. I love this comic because...
Well, we're over here now. I don't know. A lot of different opinions on that as to which one is best. Deterministic. I think that was my... I think Wrath was my favorite. In fact, the Burning Crusade was probably my favorite. I think Summer was fine. I like an RNG plus some backup at the back end. I think is fine. Yeah, I think that's totally fine. I don't like purely deterministic in an RPG. Like, unless it's like a quest reward or something like that, which is like some adventure you go on. That's cool. That's cool. Pride or nothing. Yeah. I knew what I wanted and where to get it. Yeah, and I was kind of okay if it didn't drop that week. Right? I was kind of... I mean, even... I don't know how it was in everybody else's guild. Like, but I was talking about the Myrmidon's Treads in Black Temple. It became such a joke that they started putting some crackpot theories into place, where each week we would promote a different person to Master Looter to see who had the blessed RNG of the trolley with them. So they would loot the boss and see if they got it to drop and all that. Deterministic is always better because it doesn't feel like you waste your time. Disagree. Deterministic in an RPG and MMO? Nah, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think as long as the RNG isn't horrifically bad, right? Your items generally on a loot table are not like 1 in 1,000 drops, right? Your boots are not 1 in 1,000 drops. Your shoulders aren't 1 in 1,000 drops. You know, nothing... I mean, RNG has a big sliding scale of where it goes. And loot drops in general, unless it's some ridiculous transmog item which someone will whip out and go, but what about Garash's shoulders? You know that's not what I'm talking about. Generally speaking... the loot is a reasonable chance to drop, as long as the loot tables aren't fucking ludicrous. And you've got a very high chance of getting it in a tradable world. Like, within a few... You're not going to get it week 1. You're probably not going to get it week 2 or 3, but it's going to start dropping. But back up at the high end, where it's not the ideal item, well, that's okay. BIS is something that should be the end game goal. Like, that's what we're talking about. It's like, when are you BIS? I'm for the PvE side, of course. PvP works on totally different rules and regulations. But in the PvE side, being absolute BIS should be the end game goal. When is the end game? 5 weeks in? In an MMO? No, I don't think so. I don't think so. And it's whenever you're comfortable as well. When are you comfortable? Like, do you need BIS? Everybody will answer the different question. Do you want your character to be absolutely BIS? I don't. I don't particularly care. If I'm close, like really close, minus, say, a ring or a necklace or something like that, I'm not that arsed anymore. I'll happily come on an alt and start having some fun with that. Some people will stay on their one character forever and chase the absolute BIS, and they'll probably get it without much issues. You know what I mean? They'll probably get it that pretty well. If they're in an organized environment that's farming it, they'll probably get it. Forge would be better if you could upgrade your normal equipment as part of the item level progression. That was the other solution, but then you're adding more and more systems, right? Then you're adding more and more systems. So now we've got another system to upgrade. You're talking about Valor Point upgrades, aren't you? You're going back to a Valor system to make it work. I can see it's like a solution to a problem that doesn't need to exist. Right? It's a solution to a problem that doesn't need to exist. We've got this system that just randomly, crazily rewards you. That feels unfair now, because the worst thing Titan Forging did for me, and I don't know about anybody else, it made the normal drop feel like shit. If it didn't Titan Forge, or highly Warforge, or have sockets, or have any of this, it made the actual reward of getting the item, which is supposed to be your BIS item, you know, feel like arse. It felt like shit. So, now you've got that scenario you've created. Now you need yet another system to try and bolster that up so eventually you can get a good item. I don't know. Yeah, correct, Zebrios. Yeah, we're solving a problem we created, rather than it being pretty simple. Rather than just keeping it nice and simple and stuff like that. But I don't know, that's the way it goes. Chasing an item for 6 to 9 months. Best stuff. See, that's got to be a different swing on the RNG side of things, right? I can't remember what item I've chased the longest. Myrmidon Treads is a memory for one. The Legion caster trinket that you used with combustion because it guaranteed crit. But again, I think I chased that for 4 weeks, 5 weeks. But again, it's personality based. I think I got the heroic one, and I was fine then. I got the mythic one sometime later, but once I got the heroic one, I was pretty fine with that. I had the item and its power. Didn't hit as hard, but it still did its thing. Like Whispers in the Dark. Once you had the heroic one, you were good. But are you upset if you have the heroic one and not getting the mythic one really quickly? They became obsolete. That was another problem they ran into, is resetting the game every few months. They made the game fully seasonal. Maybe I'm a little rose tinted on this. But I remember, let me go to Wrath here real quick. And can't really see my... Oh, there's a druid. That doesn't really count. That don't really count. I don't think you can see here. I remember, like, around this time, wearing still stuff from the previous raid for quite a while. I'm trying to see if I can see an example of it. Like, Betrayer of Humanity from... I haven't got any videos of where we're actually, like, running around in gear. Yeah, I'm a druid here, which is unfortunate. Like, Betrayer of Humanity, I think, was used for a really long time into Ulduar. It lasted a really long time, right? That's what I'm trying to say, is the gear you farmed previously, you used for quite some time going into the next raid. It was worthwhile to try and get the previous sets, whereas I made a conscious argument. I made a pretty conscious argument to Alex, which I'm sure he didn't like, is that after we killed the last boss, like Nazoth or whatever, there really wasn't much point in playing anymore. Because we replaced all our loot the day the new raid came out. And that was kind of where my head was at, which is a horrible place to be, but it was so true. It was true, for the most part, is once you'd cleared the last raid, the last boss, there was very little reason for me to continue playing until the next raid. Now, I understood why we needed to do it, because there are definitely people in the guild who want to get every item, and that's fine. I'm supporting them. They're my friends. I'm going to support them. And it keeps the guild together. But personally, I would be happy to stop raiding now, and then start again when the new raid comes out in like 5 months' time. I would be okay with that. I would be totally fine. That is loot focused instead of fun focused. I guess so, but it was also like when raids really became like... This might be a really stupidly egotistical thing to say, and THD might be able to spread some more joy on this comment, but when raiding became like, there's a 10-boss raid, you kill 8 bosses in a week, and then spend 2 months on 2 bosses, which obviously they wouldn't, but that's what we did. That's what ended up happening for us in like the top 100 world, is you just ended up spending the vast, overwhelming majority of your raid time on 1 or 2 bosses. That was it. And that wasn't that fun anymore. We feel like you were the reason I never got my items on the alley. I'm sorry. It's about loot in general, because I do want to compare it to FF's stuff when I learn that about it. Just be more shit. Well, that happened to everybody. It just got worse. Those stats just magnify. The further you go down, they just magnified and magnified as to how long. What's the longest you ever spent on a single boss, like as a team, without your guild falling apart, obviously. Without your guild falling apart. 3 weeks. That's rookie numbers. That's some rookie numbers right there. That's rookie numbers. 3 weeks. In any game. In any game. 6 weeks. Allurial Mythic. Ugh, nightmare. Healer team. A month or so. 3 months. Yeah. That's more up to where I was at for sure, man. 10 weeks of Sultanas. Our guild is dead. 2 months on Gorfiend and Wad. Ooh. Gorfiend Mythic. Yeah, that's a classic one. That's a classic one. That's a classic one. Right, let's have a piss and then we'll play some FF7. Yeah. Look at these beauties.